podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead Podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I very much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. The button is pressed and the stuff is happening. Peace, guy.
Peace, my brother.
It's that time again.
Yes, sir.
The time that is, the time that was, the time that will be.
See, that's how you sound. That's how, you know what I'm saying? That's how you know you get an old head status. when just a conversation start with a real full intro from a
right. You gotta lay out a whole proclamation to get the conversation going.
Right, you gotta start the conversation with Start the conversation with a proclamation. That's about it. But no, everything. I mean, as well as we can talk about things being right now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, we'll get into it. It's just
no, it's a high wild time right now. But so what we landed on was, as we just got word out here more or less, like from most of the school districts, sort of what they thinking the world's gonna look like in the fall. And I thought maybe us touch a base, because what school looks like is not just an abstract concept for either one of us. We both have school age children who will be going that will be involved in education again in a not too short 2 months. So I thought maybe it would be good if we wade into that, to get a thought, because it raises a lot of interesting matters from like how we do education just in general, but also the nagging concept is sort of this idea of what's being lost, like what are kids losing, and yeah. So what I'll land on, or maybe just going. So here for the district, my daughter will be in, and is in the prescribed options we have. Either you go, there's a full just online school. You can just go to full online school. And like every district in Oregon has at least one that they partner with or work with or are part of. And then so you can just go where you're just going to go online school. But for that one, you got to register like relatively quick so that they can staff up to make sure they have enough teachers to run a fully online show. Now, there's always been these online schools and online charter schools here for a few years, but there's a specific option. The other side of it is going to be some, either cohort model, with the thing that there will be, the kids will not be in school every single day. So it'll be either like a week on, a week off, or so many days in a week with your cohort of kids that you are kind of with all the time. And it's a challenging set of circumstances.
I mean, so for Messiah is and he attends a charter out here. So for them, what they have done is presented a very similar model. They call it 3 models, but it's really kind of 2. So you either can do just online distance learning, of which they started last year or last school year, or you can do the evolving, very similar, very cohort model where they would do the idea is do 1 week on, 2 weeks off. And so I kind of get that on some like, okay, so if something happened, you had 2 weeks to figure out what the hell was happening with you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, you
Right.
know,
You already built the 2 weeks in. You don't gotta
yeah,
find
you
it
ain't
2
got
weeks.
you
I
ain't got
like
to find
that.
it 2
Yeah.
You ain't got to find 2 weeks. They already built in for you. So if something happened, you had 2 weeks, Jack. So you know, I think everyone's trying to evolve and adjust, right? But I think um it brings to bear some of the broader issues. Like I think COVID has been almost like COVID is like the cousin that comes to the house that like shows everybody in the family how messed up the family's been for a long time. 'Cause the cousin is like coming to tell the truth about everybody, right? And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and when they get there, like no one's safe, right? So you know, even like you think like your mom or your grandmom is going to be safe from the stories, and people like
Nah.
because you remember what happened when this time when you're supposed to tell these people, like, and so COVID is just making it clear. I mean, just frankly the limits of what we have allowed America to be. That's how I would define it. Like we
Mm.
see the limits of what we have allowed America to be from the very beginning to the fact that most cities, very few cities, and most states in America don't really have a thorough public health system, right?
Yeah.
Don't really have a thorough system of being able to deal with this stuff, even though everybody knows that there are pandemics that shoot around the globe once every 3 to 5 years. We
Yep.
like we know this. This is not like a thing that jumped on us where we just got caught flat-footed. Like no, you know this is going to occur, right? And so, and if you just think about, frankly, all the other health disparities that exist in most cities and states, and how most of our health departments have never really been suited to resolve those either. So you see like the culmination of all these things with COVID, and then it brings out obviously a whole bunch of issues around our economic system and the ability to get resources to people. But also now it's bringing out like, okay, if you don't send your kids somewhere, do they learn? Right? Which is
Yeah.
a whole nother thing in itself. If you don't send them somewhere, do they learn? It shows how many parents don't necessarily know what their kids learn when they go wherever they go. How many
Yeah.
parents have not been able to help their kids do the homework or wherever they go, right? And so you just see now all these things come out, and then based on the area, based on the access to resources, you know, now you see who gets a computer. How difficult is it to get a computer? How are you going to educate young people with with special needs, right? And exceptionalities. Like there's just so much that this is revealing, and it just reveals to me the kind of breakdown of the systems that I think everybody took for granted and acted like it was all normalized, right? And
Mhm.
it's like now we're being faced with this whole huge shift of like, there's going to be millions of children who, even if they are educated extremely well via distance learning, and shout out to all the educators and all the folks who are stepping in and from a community perspective, because this is a huge lift, right?
Mhm.
But it just brings to bear like, okay, if this is going to at its best, even when you're in school, if you assume school was the best place for kids to be, right? If you make that assumption, we know that for a variety of factors, that young people are getting further and further apart, even when they're going to school every day.
Yep.
So now, what are we going to do when you ain't in school every day? Young people are having drastically different experiences, right? And how long does it take to make this experience up, right? And so that's like the top line, right? And I'll acknowledge when you wear a degree of privilege, right? And when you wear a degree of privilege, where I'm like, you know what? Hey, man, Messiah School, they've been thoughtful around this, and they've talked to us in a way that makes sense, and they've communicated in a way, right? But I also
Mhm.
know that all parents are not having that experience.
Yeah. Some parents are just they, really they're like they like, school starts in September. Like they may not even really, they're not getting the emails. They're not, they're just not in that wave, and they, some sense it's dependent on the kids to find out what's about to happen, right? Like the kids like, oh, I talked to so and so. You know what I'm saying? I talked to my friend, and they, her mom said, whoa, okay, all right, well, when you got to sign up, or when you got to go, or
right,
where you got to be. The thing I got to thinking about with this is because it's a sense of almost like, everybody, there was a deal, right? Everybody assumed there was a deal. You know what I'm saying? And then there was a certain way, like trade off, like, all right, well, kids go off to school, and so since we can, house everybody's kids in a school somewhere, whether it's a school they could pay for or a school that they pay for, via the public largesse, so to speak. And then you can go off and be a unit of production somewhere, and
right.
and you don't got to worry about what they're doing. You got to worry about it, but you ain't really got to worry about it, right? And so and so because that's just the lens I was thinking about it from, like, and from everything about the way way we construct housing, the way we lay out communities, is this idea that, like, if you live in a smaller space, even if you're a bunch of people, well, y'all ain't all gonna be there all the time, so it's all good. You know what I'm saying? If that's the deal, right? But then when it's suddenly like, yo, you got, if I have two kids, one's graduated high school, right? I have the privilege where they can have their own rooms, and at least theoretically, if they are able to be independent operators, could set them up in there and they could do their thing, and largely, I could do my work that I got to do from home in this other room, and everyone will be fine. But for people that's not the case, you know what I'm saying? I if I had two kids under 10 with different, grade levels, that had to get, like, somebody, it has to not be working to administer them. Like, to make sure that they're where they're at, what task you on. Okay, cool. Track the activity. All the things that happens when you're in school. The adult there, gives you the learning instructions and the learning activity, and then they monitor with you. They might have a lot of independent time depending on the structure of the school, or what the culture of the classroom is. And suddenly we going in the crib, and like distance learning to me is very feasible and functional when I think of, like, older kids, right? When I think of younger kids, I always just think, like, it's functional and feasible, but you probably need somebody around every once in a while. You know what I'm saying? And even with older kids, you still need somebody probably to pop in. Like, now I've had the fortune of being actually present when I've seen someone else teaching a distance learning class, like running a school. I worked in a school that was a distance learning school, and there was a lot of trusting that the kids were doing what they said they were supposed to be doing, and they had, it was a little bit more primitive technology at the time I observed it. Trying to, like, you make sure your screen is on this thing and not on this other thing, and all this other kind of stuff. But it gets into just a lot of bigger questions to me about, like, why did we construct a model that only really works one way? Right, like, and it speaks to, like, where we know there's some kids that fail in that model, like, over and over again, and never get out of that model the experience that we think they're supposed to get. But we make and have made that model the only model, right? Like, so you can't, if at 13 being in the classroom every day just doesn't, it ain't working. We can't go, well, look, bro, here's what you can do. If you come up here, pick these things up, there's these different, tracks, learning target things and these meetup groups, and you can do them however you need to do them between now, as long as you get to all 35 of them. I don't know, between now and before you turn, depending on your school district, before you turn 19, we'll give you a diploma.
Right.
We ain't, we've said no, we can't do nothing like that. We can't create no other models that are operating concurrent to this sort of, like, everyone come in the room, and this is my class, and then I'm going to teach my class, and then so I'm going to leave, and we're going to have my, my benchmarks and milestones that I enjoy as a teacher, and the kids are going to have this, wholesome experience, or maybe they're not, right? Or maybe they're not going to have a wholesome experience at all. And this situation is just shown. It's like, one, y'all all acted like this was the only way things could work. You treated that the idea that regardless of those parents' living situation, that every child could just be in this other place all day, and whatever people were caring for them did not have to have any other alternate plans to care for them. And we wouldn't create intentional structures that would make sure if they couldn't be in the building for a significant amount of time, that they could still, the parents and the caregivers could still give them care, and they could still access educational opportunities.
Right.
It's real, like, it's telling. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, this is just, y'all, everybody thought this was just gonna work forever. Like, this, this is not a it's not showing itself to be a winning hand, and it raises some other questions for me around, like, what are the alternatives that maybe we could people could step up, right? Because sometimes in the middle of a disaster is an opportunity to do things differently. But in the moment, with what we have, I think it feels like it's a collective sort of like, so y'all telling me the kids ain't really gonna go back to them buildings in September? Like, it's like people just like, so what you trying to tell you is, brother, what you telling me is, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's gonna be, a little man's I see every day do his outside time. About great, like, he gonna be out here all winter. He coming around the block again because he got to go out the crib for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but it talks about the fact that, to your point, we have had everyone sitting in these rooms knowing that it probably didn't serve their interests, but it served society's interest to put them all in there at the same time, doing the exact same stuff. And obviously, some districts have been very creative and innovative in thinking about what young people are learning. So I'm speaking in the general, right? But it makes you think that, and now everyone's like, what are we going to do? And then it's like, well, again, what were they doing in there? How much was everyone thoughtful about what they were doing in there? And to your point, if everybody had to go there so that you could go to work. So it's like, did you go to work so they could go to school? Or did they go to school so you could go to work?
So you go to work.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what actually came first, right? And then you have to have a conversation around the nature of the system, right? And you have to think to, like, okay, well, man, okay, so did they make it easy for the kids to go to school? And we know, school is based on the agrarian model and the industrial model. And we know all these things, right? Like, those are facts, right? We know that those things are happening. But now it's bringing it bare. And then you start to bring it bare. Why are all these other countries not having this problem? Right? All the places we look down on, all the places we act like a slow, why are they not having the same problems about figuring out how you educate children? Why is the rest of the world not having this issue? I mean, one, this is why is the rest of the world not having this issue of COVID spreading like the bubonic plague, right? Like,
and the actual bubonic plague showing up in Colorado for the first time.
Oh man, this
like the actual bubonic plague, like the plague, like, you know what I'm saying, just so for the listeners out there.
This fall is like the season of Different World when everybody was on there. It just was all crazy because like all the relationships was on Different World all at the same time. It's kind of like we're gonna have COVID, the flu, bubonic plague. We just missed the murder hornets.
Right.
What's not coming on? What's not coming on the TV show, the sitcom this fall? But I mean, it brings to bear, like, okay, again, going back to my point earlier, why were other countries able to deal with this? In March and April, when we were going through the first curve of this, right? 1A, because I assume we're really still in 1. We're just on 1B now. But like when we were in 1A, if you remember, everyone was talking about Italy and how Italy was like ground zero. We don't talk about Italy anymore.
Nope.
Right? There's no conversation around Italy. Now the country with the next closest to us is Brazil, which outside of a country being beautiful is not much that you want to be mentioned right next to Brazil as far as like, governmental
functioning governmental
government.
effectiveness, definitely equitable or any way fair government.
No, besides beautiful people in a beautiful country and where most black people is, you don't want to be mentioned next to Brazil. So that in itself is the underlying thing. And another thing, I think I may have said it on here, but it is truly fascinating to me, and I mentioned it, and I will continue to. We can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like we cannot. We can travel to like 6 countries, all rogue countries, all across the world. Like we can't travel to a country in good standing on the planet. And it's fascinating that American media has not had this conversation to even discuss it to the point where you don't even hear people talking about it. Like,
well, it is. I think the crazy, or the wild, you know what I'm saying? I understand that crazy sometimes is the ableist term, no disrespect. The reality that is like, folks in certain political philosophies have advocated that this sort of benign, this bold obstinance to like doing something just because I feel strongly in my values that this, that, or that, whatever. And it's like, the rest of the way physics and chemistry, biology, natural science, the cause and effect structures, the ripple effect, you throw a rock in the water, none of that cares about your particular, what's the word? Is it astrological? What's the word? The word that you use around how the world works.
Right.
So, like, we are like the situation going on in Georgia where the governor saying like wear a mask, but like I ain't gonna tell people to wear no mask.
Right.
It's like, fam, what kind of weird splitting hairs type of philosophy of life is this? That something is something people should do, but because some people think that you shouldn't be able to tell people that they should do it, that you shouldn't say you should do that. So therefore, I'm gonna say this other thing, and then I'm gonna spend resources, time, and energy to get other people who, through their elected officials, say, "Well, look, within the confines of our space, we down with this." And that activity and the way that has been escalated for commercial profit within our country, for all of my life, because I remember it distinctly back to being a kid in my first times, like kind of watching the news and really understanding what's happening, but especially in the this late stage of development of like trying to think. Let me think of the right way to phrase this. The use of sort of your conservative versus liberal versus whatever, your certain political identity, and that then being the guidelines for everything that you can think is acceptable to talk about, acceptable to do. The first, just moving fully away from any deliberative process to make a decision. You know what I'm saying? I listened to, I think it was from a week ago, or maybe even Howard Bryan and Bomani Jones. And Howard Bryan brought up, I can't remember the person he was quoted, but saying like when science and politics, run up against each other, politics is the decision that you get made. Like not the science. Like, it's always going to go with the politics. And at this moment, it's like, I don't know how much, I mean, I guess I can see how much wackier it could get, but it's like, look, man. If you rolling with the team that's like anti-mask and liberty, whoa, like I hear you, baby. But like, come on, dog. Like we can't even go outside. Like I can't go to Canada.
Right.
Canada's 6 hours from here. We're our biggest trading partner. I can't go there if I wanted to have a relaxing cocktail, and look at the Puget Sound from the Canada side, so to speak, or what I'm saying, or other things, and not because of simply because some people just don't want to do the thing that you need to do to get the job done, while claiming to be the people that's all about getting the thing done to get the job done. Right. It's bananas.
Well,
I'm just like, really though? So I'm curious to how, if the kids was in a politics class, like, I mean, I'd be the teacher there. I'd be like, look, I mean, because that's one of the playing grounds of the development of their political culture, is to get the kids that's into politics to get to debate it, in school. Right. It'd be like, there's no logical reason for these decisions. Like they're fully just they're continued outgrowth of America's, and I'll say it, our country's built-in piece of, we will sustain the current status quo by ignoring stuff that will make us possibly have to change, even if it means my boat is sinking. Like I'd rather let my boat sink than let you have, a sense that you can do what you want, and without my approval. And it's just, it's really, I mean, I'm really sad. I mean, I know my energy is a little bit like laughy, but it's sad. It's sad what's happening in Arizona and Texas right now.
Mm-hmm.
Florida right now. Like a lot of people gonna be hurt for a generation because we committed to this idea that there's both sides to every discussion, and it's like, sometimes it's just the side that makes sense, and then there's bullshit. Right. And we go like, that's bullshit. I appreciate that you said it. I honor you for being willing to share what you said and being bold and brave in the room. What you said was bullshit, and we're not going to do that. But thank you for sharing, and we're going to do this other thing. And maybe this is the mark or the experience in our lifetime that'll say, yeah, we got to go to something else, functionally as a society, or we will not be. But I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Like the thing that, people are so not impacted, right? So it's kind of like, and here's the other thing in America. We've had this conversation kind of. It's written in to kind of our risk rewards or risk benefit scenario as a society, who's going to die and who's going to live. So we know if you go 60 miles an hour, we know in this country, there's however many hundreds of thousands of accidents a year. And there are hundreds of thousands of people that die in car accidents every year.
Yeah.
Right? Now, theoretically, you could argue no one should have to die in a car accident. But in America, that this is how many people are going to die every year. Mm-hmm. To the point where we don't have the conversations about how many people die in car accidents.
Yeah.
Right? Like we don't talk about it except for like, who people perceive as like transit nuts, right? We're like, you know what I'm saying? We're like Campaign Zero and you know what I mean? Like Vision Zero, whatever. Like, except for the people like in government who like, man, no one should have to die in a car accident. The rest of us have written into our heads consciously or unconsciously that there's a certain amount of people we're willing to die.
Yeah.
Right? This is what's happening. There's a certain amount of people, and those people are thankfully becoming the minority, at least in this context of a conversation, who have written in, them people was old anyway.
Yeah.
Them people, like, you know what I mean? It's like a horrible gym teacher being your leader. Like, the reason you fell and got hurt doing the push-ups because you were weak. It's like, It's like the dude that used to train the people that fought Karate Kid. What was his name?
Right, yeah. Cobra Kai.
Right, the Cobra Kai. It's like America's being run by Cobra Kai. Like, so you get just straight. Y'all just, oh man, shit. They got it, if he dies,
Sucks to be them.
Sucks to be if he dies, he dies. Like Drago, like hold on, man. Like you don't think half of this stuff was preventable, right? And so, but it's interesting, and I will say this. There's people who are really worked up about taking the precautions that we have to do as a society to keep each other safe. It's not a perfect overlay on other communities who are constantly feeling unsafe and there are things happening in the public. And do they feel like they have to do those kind of things to keep them safe? Like, for example, are we doing, is everyone's society doing what we have to do to keep young ladies safe from trafficking, or young males, right? I'm not making a distinction. Young people away from trafficking, right? Do we all feel like we have to do our part? Right? Or have we written that out, right? Is that just part of what comes with being America? So now we're faced with the first thing of people being like, well, maybe this is not part of what comes with being America, right? Maybe I don't want my grandmother, grandfather, uncle, or mom to die. Right? And so that brings to bear, like, yeah, but it underscores, that's why Cobra Kai and them over there, Drago and them over there are running this like, man, we opening schools because we need to get paid. Right? Like, this is a mall, this is a consumer economy, and we need to get paid. And any of y'all don't recognize that, well, you're just going to deal with it. And so it's like a mirror of our insanity, right? Like, for real. It's a mirror of the crazy shit that goes on in America that now people are being faced like, and I'll say this and I'm done. We have not developed any kind of civic unity as a country, as a relationship to your fellow citizen, right? Never. We never develop any of that. Like, you're an American, but you're really from this place. I ain't from Africa. I'm from Crenshaw Mafia, right? Like, I'm not like this. I'm from here, right? So we've all been allowed to develop these multiplicities of identities. And now we're surprised when people won't look out for their fellow neighbor. We've developed all these identities. Now, again, this is not me calling for like we're all this or we're all that, but I'm just saying it's very interesting now that people want people to have a civic maturity, but there's nowhere we learn a civic maturity, right? There's nowhere we learn this true plurality of what does it mean to have to do the right thing for the person you don't know. And so now we're faced with that, and now we're all surprised of why our country's not prepared to have that mature of a conversation.
Yeah. And it's the general idea, the reality that we with reason and practice have devised entire strategies to organize things and get things done by sort of elevating the idea that you are not concerned for that person.
Exactly.
Right. Like, you don't have to be concerned for them. And also, it's actually more virtuous for you to not be concerned. You are exempling a higher level of human honesty or something by going, no. If those people all die, it's just hard luck. Sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles, and you know what I'm saying, they should have, hard times. You know what I'm saying? If it was me, I wouldn't want them to be upset.
Right.
Right, which is never, which everybody says till it's them, heading down the drain. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, y'all. I'm hardworking. I'm this, I'm that. Like, wait, y'all can't let me fail. And it's like, no, this is what we're gonna do. This is what it looks like. So like when we, swinging back to the schoolhouse, you know what I'm saying, when we start talking about like, oh yeah, well then all the teachers need to be in the building. I'm like, what if all the teachers be like, nah, teachers got a union, damn strong one.
Oh yeah.
And these public schools, and I'm gonna be like, you know what? No, we ain't gonna do, boss. You come get me from the house. You think I'm gonna go in a schoolroom with 40 kids right? We got many districts in this country where the average is 30 plus, 35 plus. So you're going to sit with like 8 classes a day, right? So this is what we're going to do? So this is what we're going to do. Like we just going to act like that makes sense. Like I'm like, I ain't coming. Like y'all can open the school building if you want.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, and it's like obvious that like the position stuff is like this is a totally unsafe reality, and then be like, hey, but y'all get on over there. Right? Like people can't be around each other. You can't be with nobody but your family. But my fault. You need to get on there so somebody can go to work.
Yeah, you need to get in there.
You need to go to work because here's essentially what we're saying. You need to go to work so I can go to work.
Yeah.
Or so that someone else can come work for me and I can get paid. And it ain't working right now. So I need you to do what you got to do.
You get up in there.
Get up in there.
I need you to get in there and make this thing happen, man.
And that's you know what I'm saying, and that's where we are.
So, just a thought though, because the thing that is most challenging about this, because because of the catalyst for this circumstance being, the disease and illness, it also makes it hard for some of the where you go like, wait, well maybe this is a time, you know what I'm saying, redirect, funds to like community schools or smaller, smaller gatherings or like, you know what I'm saying, dispersed models. Maybe you bring some of them same teachers that would have been teaching in the school, you know what I'm saying, and they working with a group of, a pocket of families or something like. I don't know if any of us have the quite frankly, the intestinal fortitude to sit through that thought process. Like to how could we make that work? You know what I'm saying? If instead of, I have seen at least a couple people say, don't pay any teachers and just pay moms to be teachers at home, which I'm like, I hear what you're saying in theory. On the other hand, if the teacher at home, but they're teaching an online school where there's still a teacher somewhere, that don't, you got to pay both of them then. But, that's a whole nother thing. It's like, do you think there's some things or anything that you could think of that maybe is a window here that folks could maybe step through or at least lean in to dwell in thought about how we could be different?
So and there's a couple things that I really am heartened by the idea of us sitting and thinking how to be different. One of my challenges of us how to be different is always that the process of how to be different is almost like a very specific, what I would call an elitist process. So what I mean is like, okay, those of us who got time to sit over here and think about what's going to be different, that have a facilitator that communicates a certain way, are the people who are going to think about how to be different. But the people who really ain't got but a moment to talk to you, or they don't hang out where everybody might hang out, how do you crowdsource possibilities from them? You see what I'm saying? And so then the possibilities always tend to be the product of privilege. And I don't think that's always intentional, but I think that the time to sit and think about the new thing, we have to think about how do we take it to the people who haven't had time to do that. And if that's virtual, if that's digital, if that's, they about to get on the bus and you got to start asking questions before they cut you out and don't want to talk no more. Like, how do you really crowdsource the true space of what people are telling you they need? And then the moonshot, right? Because I also look at the two things of like the balance of here's what people are telling you need, but they may be telling you they need that just for a incremental element better than the status quo, right? Like if you said to me, how could I make your life better? Give me some more money, right? But that's only going to make me incrementally better, right? If you give me, if you give me a certain amount of money more, it's going to make me incrementally better. AKA, I can pay off a bill, or I can save some more money, or I can go buy something else, right? That's only an incremental of human happiness, right? it hasn't
Mhm.
shifted the fundamental way of how I do business and how I embrace my life. So I think sometimes the thing of what'll make my life better is the increment, right? And what I'm
Mm.
so it's like how you do the increment, and then what is the moonshot? Like, what is the thing that's like, whoa, we never thought that would happen until it became normal. Like, did you ever think you get on a computer and send money to people, or we be having a conversation over something that's not a phone,
Mm.
right? Like, if you would have told somebody 20 years ago in all but the most high tech environments that they be talking to somebody over a computer, they tell you use a damn lie, right?
I ain't talking to no computers.
But it was a
To the
moonshot.
computer. Yeah.
It was a moonshot, right? And as a moonshot became very normalized. So I've been really thinking about that balance of what's the one thing that every year you just shooting for. And so I do think there's that conversation needs to be had of like, can you model something and deconstruct a system, but do it in a space that's entirely scalable. Like, don't do it in a space where then people like me are going to tell you all the reasons you can't scale it. Because I'm the scale I'm the
You,
scale dream killer, right?
you can't.
I am the dream killer when it comes to scale. I'm like, well, is that scalable though, right? So, like, listen,
You me telling my 5'5" young man like, hey fam, I don't know if the NBA is in your future, beloved.
hey man, I don't
I
have
don't think you gonna make it, Playboy.
I don't have no problem shutting something down if we can't scale it. So, um, so yeah, so I'm just saying, like, I think you know, really doing something in a way and in a space that can really be like, let's take some time here and shoot for this thing. You know what I mean? Like, let's try to bust a real move. Just because I think to the point we do need to have those kind of conversations, like to your point, you know what I mean? That need to do that. So we need to get somewhere between the incremental and the moonshot, I think, to move society, right?
Mm.
And I don't think the incremental thing moves society, right? Like the incremental thing gets you, again, to be a little better, but then at some point that becomes unsatisfying, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Versus like the big thing, but the big thing has to be sourced from all of us so that it truly can be accepted and truly be engaged, right? And so, I mean, I do think one, there is a conversation, and it needs to be a conversation around, you know, for those who are interested, what does it mean for young people to have this balance of quote unquote homeschooling and distance learning, right? So if a young person does have a focus to be able to sit and do some things and then go kick it with 7 other kids, right? With a communal teaching process, and then get
Right,
back on the internet to learn some other things. You see what I'm saying? And
right,
have
right,
that
right.
kind of balance that may or may not be like really focused on it taking place inside of a brick and mortar building. Right
Yeah.
now, obviously, there's some other young people that all of our citizens we need to think about. So then there's some other challenges. Some of these things, I think ESL young people
Mm-hmm.
are especially challenged in this situation, and especially where they're at on that spectrum, not spectrum, but on that scale, or in that space of ESL. But I mean, clearly there are people who have been teaching people to speak English as a first language and still educating them for years, right? Within communities, within school districts. So it can happen, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, I think it shook us out the status quo. So I would just say, really, what we need to do now is get between that space of the increment and actually the increment in that moonshot to see how we can make societal shifts.
Mm. I like that. I appreciate that. I think I mean, the only thing I will add is you know, we are at a place that is the result of, a cascading set of decisions and assumptions about, sort of a cosmology and a vision of how things should work.
Right.
And so if we embrace that, we are going to have to get to a more fair, equitable reasonable, sustainable society, we're going to have to be ready to let go of stuff that, let go of ideas that, even that may really comfort us, and I just, I think one, the world's going to happen and people are going to do things. So I don't ever I don't lose any sleep over that aspect of it. What I do concern myself with is, will we find the space to turn to the idea that the age old reality that I could actually talk to the humans over there that are next to me and come up with a way that we could be here and be all right with each other. And that is actually something that works if we go ahead and do it. Now, I might have to deal with the reciprocity of giving up something that I want to hold on to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But, if we both are giving up, but we're both also taking on, right? Because we don't got to just look at it as a negative, negative ratio. We also look on it as a strength. Like, also, I'm going to start doing, right? I'm going to be adding on in this other way. We can get to something that, a way for us all to sustain and maybe thrive at a later date. But, whew, man, I know it's going to be a lot of reading in this house.
Man, listen, it's going to be a lot of reading. Did you get that done? Why do we have to talk about this right now? Did you really think about that before you asked me the question?
Right. Well,
man, I'm just having. So I'm having a challenge. Oh man, I love it. That bull's something else. But yeah, I just think this is a time that people should really think about their privilege and think about, like, for those who are reasonably comfortable, that their child will not suffer. There's a lot of children who they're maybe not eating the same way they were used to eating. There are some children that school is their safe place. And that doesn't have to mean I'm not saying that because I like that. That's an idea. But I just know that to be reality.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There are some young people who and there's some people that say nothing about the social interactions, and that's where they like to be. And those will be largely taken from them, right? And so, while we're looking at, the crazy Joe, not crazy Joe is Biden, but crazy Joe in the White House. Like, while the focus is on him and all the crazy stuff going on, it's really like, as the old 70s songs would say, like, think about the children, man. Like, and what can we all individually and collectively do to make all the children's lives better, so that they're going through a time unlike any other in American society, but that they can still flourish. You know what I mean? And I think, being child centric in this context means really thinking, how do we help them pull through as safe as possible?
Indeed.
So, and we talk about all this heavy shit.
Yeah, man. In the pivot, you know what I'm saying? We're on the block. I'm about to get that entry pass.
Yeah, B. So, one thing I've been I ain't been thinking about it, so let me not say that. I don't realize that. So, people they start with the intro. So one thing I've been thinking about, I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about this in particular. I actually find myself listening to music with most of the music I listen to ain't got no words to it, which I was surprised if anybody started realizing, like, ain't no words to this song. Okay. It sounds like something I would listen to a couple years ago, but it ain't no, okay, whatever. It's these artists named Tall Black Guy and Celestial Seasons and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'm rocking with Tall Black Guy. I got some Tall Black Guy I was just banging. I'm like, oh, man.
No.
They were timeless.
No. He's tough. Tall Black Guy's tough. You know what I mean? So as I've been getting into all that kind of stuff, I haven't been spending as much time listening to hip hop, but one thing I was just interested in, and I will say that it was sparked by kind of listening to Black Thought's Roots Picnic, freestyle in air quotes, as well as one of his new songs. And you know, he's interesting in that he's somebody that's almost 50 years old, but actually has gotten better than he was 20 years ago. And there's almost no rapper that can say that. Almost none. There's almost no rapper that can say they're better. I think there's a number of them who are as good, but I would be hard pressed to say someone who is better than they were 20 years ago, which was damn good. So I thought about it and I said, well, let me ask my brother, when he thinks about hip hop to the degree that he thinks about it, or the artist or whatever, because I know you have, and not eclectic musical taste, but you have taste that, much like your personality, kind of like somebody thought you was going to be over here, you was over there.
Yeah, I'm over there, man. I'm on the Z. Thought I was zigging, baby. I'm zagging.
That's why I listened. They thought you was zigging, you was zagging. So, you know what I'm saying? I guess let's go here. Who are your top 5 in no order artists throughout listening to hip hop, just in hip hop history? No particular order.
No particular order.
So here's what I do. I'll give you mine.
All right, word up, man. Take the pressure off. Take the pressure off.
My man. That's how we do it, brother. So I'll give you mine in no particular order. Scarface. I think Brad Jordan is probably one of the most underrated rapper. Again, he's one of the few people that could do a song that his song in 1990 was good and a song today would be good. And you've never really heard a bad Scarface verse, right? Like you've never really heard a bad verse, So I think Face, Rakim. I mean, and I think the Rakim conversation is kind of like jazz, where you had like these people who did something so amazing during a certain time. It doesn't mean that they were like the most consistent, but they still did something at such a high level, right? At one time that you can't not include them in the dialogue, right? And so that's where Rakim always comes into it for me. He would be like Clifford Brown in jazz. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this was an amazing guy for the time he did it, and then he wasn't around too many more. Like, you really think of Rakim, he put out an album 86, 89, 90, 92, and then was gone for 5 years. And then did an album, and then was gone for another 4 or 5 years, right? So by 96, 97, you were just talking about a person you'd already said was the best, right? And so, again, he's in that another level of category for taking the art, I would say, up to up a notch on that level. Third one I would include actually is it is Black Thought. Again, not in any particular order, but he has redefined actually what it means to be a consistent rapper and an artist, right? In age, and be able to like really be at his best and at the top of the actual art form throughout that time. The one I'm about to say right now it's a difficult one for me. Not difficult, but I challenge myself often with it. But then I, just the idea is Jay-Z. And Jay is somebody, who, again, somebody that's like, he was the best rapper for a set of years, but it wasn't like that long if you think about it. Like from, you know what I'm saying? From when Big died and he was doing his thing, and when he hit his peak and all that kind of stuff, we still talking about a reign of like 6-7 years. Everything after that was just kind of like the street lore, right? It was like one of these guys made it, and every dude wants to be Hove, and every woman wants to be with him, right? So it was like the lore. I I don't think it was necessarily like his musical output for that same amount of time. And so it's crazy. I don't really have a fifth. There are runners up for different reasons. But yeah, I don't really. I mean, just the G Raps of the world, obviously. There's a Nas's of the world, but I don't really have like Big. Again, I look at Big as kind of like a Rakim, but even a shorter time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really include him in the same way. Like I get why people do. I look at Pun the same way, right? Like really high level artistry for a really short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So would I say they are the best? But would I argue they are the best to ever do it? Right? So yeah, I'm at 4.
Mm. So yeah, so I was thinking about it, like what's my approach? I think it's always good to have an approach. So I just thought about it like versus one. I gotta put Rakim in, because I think similar to what you said. I have a playlist on here that I put like when I listen to lyrics of Fury, it's like it's like 5 verses I think in lyrics of
Right.
Fury. You know what I mean? Like, and you enjoy the whole thing, even though it's a song with that the chorus is just saying it's getting furious, like you know what I'm saying. but he just I mean he baloobalabas that the damn track and the and to me it's a thing of like, do I find myself like enjoying the lyrics and the delivery and the experience of listening to the songs, and where I feel challenged to turn the song off, right? Like if it starts coming on, where I'm like, damn, I'm gonna go ahead and listen to this the rest of the way. I'm gonna throw Rakim up there. I'm gonna throw Thought. The man it's impressive. It's impeccable. You know what I'm saying? It's indubitable. What my man say from Princess Bride?
Yeah.
Inconceivable. You know what I'm saying? Like he would come at it this way. I was I would say and I like his product enough at this point. Like I like what Kendrick does enough that I feel comfortable putting him up in there.
Okay.
I could listen to there's always a few songs that I'm like, I like. They're almost like they're like songs like they may derivate a little bit from what I like most that he does, but there's a thoughtfulness in the lyrics and the content that I like. Okay, I enjoy what this brother is rapping about. I'm looking at let me think. I'm gonna do something unusual in these circumstances. I'm gonna throw Q-Tip in there.
Okay. I
For
mean,
me, at the moment, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just what like I'm thinking about like what I've been listening to, the last 4 or 5 weeks, and Tip pop up on all kinds of different music, and I'll be like, oh man, Tip, there go Tip, do a Q-Tip things. Like it ain't always like the most groundbreaking, so to speak, but it ain't also not groundbreaking or like not what I'm saying, quality and doesn't sound off mark. I know usually we don't pull people out of groups to be in the top 5, but I'm doing it today. It's my show. I do what I want. Fight me on the internet. And for a fifth, am I gonna go with a fifth? I mean, I could slot a lot of people in there. Because I always like to think about it as that you have a quality of product and production and skill that you could exist in them waters. I think I'm gonna match your intensity and it's gonna stop at 4. You know what I mean? But like fifth, I could go with Jay Z. I could go with It's always hard for me to go with Biggie in the broader sense, just because like what we didn't get to hear. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then I think for the for the enjoyment of the music, the other people, like for instance, I don't know if I was having this conversation with somebody or I thought about it with somebody, but I was having a thought about 50 Cent, and I think it was me and Nas Vine was talking about something, and like at some point I think 50 Cent realized that he was good at rapping, but it wasn't getting much better.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "You know what I'm gonna do? I'm not just gonna go out, but I'm gonna ride into my other the other skill sets I might have on Earth, and not, you know what I'm saying, not press this particular line, creativity, because I'm just not gonna go there within the confines of music, right? You know what I mean? Now, what he did with Power, depending on if you feel like it's high art or not high art, it was, you got 5 seasons of a television show. You did something right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's just how that works. And the other show that he do, I don't know if you watched the John with the brother that's the lawyer in prison. It's actually pretty good.
Pretty good.
For life. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's good. It's riveting television. You know what I'm saying?
I think, homie, I think he, like you said, I think he's smart. He's smart. He knew that as an artist, that was a part of what he brought to the table, right? And I think, now we're at a place where we can allow hip hop artists to be like, what you did in your music career was a part of something important. It was not the sum total of everything that was important.
Yeah.
But like, it was, it was like extremely, important, that allowed you to kind of go do other stuff. All right. So, all right, then let's do a speed round real quick then.
Okay.
Who's your top 3 that are currently rapping? Just 3 currently rapping. So I'll give you mine. 1, Thought. 2, Freddie Gibbs. And 3 is a tie between Push and Jada. Both of them is and Jada's another one. He been rapping for a long time and has never had a bad verse. Never. You know what I'm saying?
Even when he sauced at the cookout, you know what I'm saying?
Yo, even when Jada's
feeling it. He's feeling it.
May everybody have at least one time in their lives where they are Jada drunk.
Yeah. just lean in, just lay in the cut, like, hey, I ain't got nowhere to go.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna be here all week, they say. But yeah, I would say
right at a right now, I would go. I mean, you hit 2 the same I was gonna hit. Thought, Freddie Gibbs, and if I go with Conway. You know what I'm saying?
Oh damn! You know what? I fucked up. I don't know. Wait, hold on. You gotta figure this out. Yeah, man.
We gotta check the ballots.
Forgot the Buffalo Boys. I forgot the Buffalo Boys. Benny the Butcher.
Yeah, he's tough too. Royce done some nice stuff the last couple of years too. Like it's so many. Man, see, I thought about that. Yeah, I forgot about Royce, man. I like what Royce be doing. I had to pick somebody, so I picked him.
Yeah, but that's no. But no, I think that's Benny. You're right. I mean, Benny's Royce. So no, it's some sort of good stuff. But I would say Thought, Gibbs, Benny, and then I would switch my Thought, Gibbs, and Benny. Then I would say Push and Jada and like a Royce and even Killer Mike is like right behind.
Yeah,
right behind him. So yes, sir.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have such a field of quality to enjoy.
Hey man, like Dumar said, field of operation. You know what I'm saying? So you know what I'm saying? We have field of operation to build on.
Indeed. So I mean, with that, I don't think there's much more to say.
I appreciate listen, like always, appreciate you, man. And same time next time. Peace.
Yes, sir. Peace.